yes, I'm going to talk about being a 7-leaf clover and strategic goal setting. So we start out with a 5-step process. First, identify what kind of resources you have. Everyone has different sets of resources available to them. Then identify what are your capabilities with those resources. What can you do with them? How can you turn those into a sustainable competitive advantage? That you want one typically that will give you excess economic rents, in other words, more money than your competition. Then, what strategy can you follow that can give you this sustainable competitive advantage? And then identify and fill the gaps. So, starting out with resources, we're going to use the example of clerical perception. I'd assume everyone here is intimately familiar with clerical perception. Correct? Probably not. It's something very few people tend to follow. But it's useful for things like, can you find the coins on the ground here? Yes, everyone can see them. Do you also notice that there's actually one that is a non-American coin in there? Or can you see the 6 4-leaf clovers in this? You see, we have one there, we have one there, and we have one there. We have, let's see, another one down here. And I'll let you try and find the other 2 because they're much more hidden than those others. In terms of finding coins in the ground, I found maybe a few $1,000s over the course of my lifetime. When I did a Fulbright trip to Latvia, for instance, I actually had my students keep a running total. Actually, they kept a running total. I didn't ask them to. They wanted to see how much money I found walking from my flat to the offices and the classroom. Over the course of the semester, I found more than $8.50, 1 penny at a time. Pennies are small, but also they have value. I found as much as 100 Great British pounds at a time. But when it comes to lifetime income, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 really isn't a very good lifetime income. 4-leaf clovers, I found around 4,000 over the course of my lifetime. I found as many as 436 in a day. What's the going rate for a 4-leaf clover on eBay? It's about $6. So 6 times 4,000, 24,000. That's still not real good lifetime earnings. Okay, then how about sniping? Is everyone familiar with sniping? That's being a sniper, shooting. I have a little bit of a problem with that. If I take these glasses off, oh my, I'm up to almost 10 inches I can see. So if I can get somebody to come within 10 inches, then maybe I could get them. But unfortunately, that's not really going to work. And also, I would have ethical issues actually with being a sniper. But I know some people who are very good snipers and who work for the military. They make $40,000 to $60,000 a year. I use it, however, for editing. I edit books. I edit articles. Data, whoops, sorry, there we have an error. So I edit data. And so to create a sustainable competitive advantage, I'm an editor of articles. I've written more than 120 articles and had over 200 other types of papers. Editor of several different books. I actually have a book that's supposed to be coming out later this month. Actually, it's supposed to come out last month, but it's running behind on leadership. I became editor of one journal, then another journal. Now I'm editor of 5 journals. And then you seek to increase the ranking of those journals. You start out, we have, just like in grades, you have an A, B, C, D, F. So everyone here likes to get Fs, correct? No, that's great. You want your journal to be an A level, you want your grades to be an A level. So for instance, I asked my students, how many of you want to get an F? and they get to bubble in a little thing saying whether or not they want to get an F. Most of them, though, for some reason, don't choose that option. So let's say then we're going to set a goal of becoming editor of one of the Academy of Management's journals. If I were to do that, the typical editor of one of their journals earns about $350,000 a year. That's pretty good. Sorry, though, we're moving into strategy, so we'll jump ahead. So focus. How am I going to do this? What do you do to become a better editor? What is it really to be a better editor? So we're going to identify and fill the gaps. Here we have another 5-step process. You start out identifying what kind of benefits do you receive. So becoming editor of an Academy Management Journal increases my reputation, increases my status, plus the status for UTD, plus it increases money. Obstacles that I would have to overcome. The first one I see is sanity. I think I would have to be insane to do that. You end up with more than 1,000 submissions in a year, which is not a fun thing to deal with. I also actually happen to enjoy educating students. You know, I asked some of my students, how many of you have had professors, you know, of course, most of the professors here, of course, really enjoy education, correct? And I actually had one of them who, she said, I was the only professor that she'd had that actually enjoyed the educational process. I think she was just trying to be nice. But, you know, there are some people who don't actually enjoy that. And then another obstacle I have, I'm not really interested in becoming editor of one of the Academy Management journals. Skills and knowledge, I'd need to become a better editor. I'd need to work on my vocabulary. And also, it's a very political process to do this. In terms of vocabulary, for instance, I had an article that was rejected by a journal. Actually, they invited us to revise and resubmit it. And one of the reviewers said, you need to find somebody whose native language is English to edit this for you. Myself and my 2 co-authors, who are endowed chairs at other American universities, who all of us had been born in the United States, grown up speaking English, they thought we didn't know how to speak English or write English. So we need to work on vocabulary a little bit. Actually, I then had my wife edit it. They actually complimented us after that. So who do I need to work with? Academy Management officers. I actually have held multiple offices within the Academy Management, so I know lots of the officers. The Academy Management staff, I actually know many of them as well. And then I've served as a reviewer for multiple ones of the journals. So my goals, ideally you need to be able to say, what can I do today so that I can move towards my longer term objectives? In terms of this one, my goal would be run. I don't want to do it. Actually, one of the 5 journals I am editor of is affiliated with the Academy Management, but it's not one of their journals. So I have one of 2 journals that is affiliated with them, Division 1 of the Academy Management, but it's not an Academy Management journal, so I don't get paid for the kind of money for it. So what can I do today? Find a new objective. So count the cost. Are you willing to pay the price in terms of becoming editor of one of those journals? No. You'll notice there's 7 exclamation points there. I really don't want to do that. That is not one of my goals. So why? Whether you want to learn how to breathe better so you can relieve stress, learn about arrays in computer science, or learn to do tricking better so that you can perform better, this set of 5 steps plus 5 steps can help you do this. So you can learn how to find 4-leaf clovers. I took one of my classes out at one point. Before I trained them, one was able to find a 4-leaf clover. I then trained them how to find them. Within 2 minutes, 100% of them were able to find them. I then actually did a little additional experiment yesterday about this as well. I took my family out, wife, 2 sons, went back to the same place where that first picture with the 4-leaf clovers was taken. all 4 of us were able to find clovers based upon learning how to find them. You can also learn how to breathe better. You can learn computer science. You can learn how to set goals and achieve goals. So, for instance, going along with the first presentation, pretty easy thing to do is touch your toes, correct? A lot of people can touch them, correct? So you can touch them like that. Then how about, we'll do it a little bit more, we'll lay down on the job for this or sit down on the job. Okay, touch them again. That's still pretty simple, isn't it? See, I offered my students this for the final exam, but they didn't seem to like these next 2 points. How many of you are familiar with a pike? Anyone want to come up and demonstrate a pike? See, one of the previous speakers, she actually knows how to do a pike, but unfortunately she's wearing a dress, so we can't have her do a pike for you. But with a pike, the basic idea is you touch your toes again. But you do it a little different way. You touch them by jumping out and touching them like that. Then, how many people are familiar with the Russian pike? Who wants to come up and try one of them? They're really fun. I've actually trained lots of people how to do these things too, by the way. So, you jump out sideways and touch them. So if you have 10 fingers, you have an outline for this presentation. 5 fingers. Identify your resources. Identify your capabilities. Identify how you can create a competitive advantage. What strategy can you follow to get that competitive advantage? Then what kind of gaps do you need to fill? Switching to the other hand, what benefits am I going to receive by filling these gaps, reaching these objectives, having this sustainable competitive advantage? What obstacles will I have to overcome? What skills and knowledge will I need to have? Do you need a degree? Degrees can certainly be helpful. Who are you going to need to work with? So, for instance, with this, I've worked with a Zig Ziglar Corporation before. Actually, he's coming to speak to my students. Or Tom Ziglar, his son, is coming to speak to my students this week. And then we have goals. Ideally, what can I do today so that I can move towards my longer-term objectives? So here we have this example again. We have these 4-leaf clovers. But you'll notice there's lots of 3-leaf clovers. Lots of individuals, when it comes to achievement, they see themselves as the 3-leaf clovers. You start achieving some goals. You accomplish some, which you shouldn't only just do professional goals. You should do them in all areas of life. You know, you have professional goals, financial, educational, spiritual, physical. So, for instance, learning how to do a pike, that can be a good goal, or how to do, tricking, how to do a flip, something like that. Then next, how many of you are familiar with 5-leaf clovers? See, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I actually, 4 and 5-leaf clovers are actually genetically a pretty similar, type of aberration, and they're relatively common. How many of you are familiar with 7-leaf clovers? Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, there's a little one there, and there's one there. They're very rare. You achieve goals, you keep achieving, you move forward, you achieve in all of the areas of life, all of the 7 areas of life, which there tends to be 7 typically, and then you can move forward, achieve goals, Thank you. And that's it.